Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book from Edward Elgar Publishers. They're an independent family business of publishers. They produce very useful high-end books for us as researchers, practitioners and legal commentators. They're excellent value. This particular book this is a short review that I'm producing. This particular book is on waste policy. That's the title of the book. It's got a subtitle, International Regulation, Comparative and Contextual Perspectives. It's been written by Alexander Gillespie and it's available both as a hardback and as an eBook and also electronically. And as I've indicated, it's an Edward Elgar publication and it's part of their New Horizons in Environmental and Energy Law. And I've given it a simple title, again, another brilliant best friend from Edward Elgar, and this is specifically in this area of waste policy, which is effectively international environment law. Now, before I go through the very short review, let's have a look at the book. There's the front of it. You can see some interesting pictures right at the front there. Then there's the spine, which you can see there, and then on the back you've got some detail about what's in the book. It's a hardback. You can see it's not a very big book at all. It runs to 230 pages. There's a list of the index at the back. It's actually indexed in terms of page numbering, not paragraph numbers. And then after that you've just got the actual body text, about 200 pages. There's a conclusion right at the back. If we go to the front of the book, though, you can see the actual... This is the series, the New Horizons in Environmental and Energy Law series, which are listed there. And then you've got the actual front of the front page of the book. There's a very nice dedication to the author's son, which is very useful. Then we have the contents section, and you can see it's structured in an introduction all the way through with a actual conclusion right at the end, and then the very final chapter, chapter 10, is a full conclusion for what he's actually talking about, the subject matter being covered here. 5 certainties of waste, the waste hierarchy, recycling, disposal into the air, disposal into the land, disposal into the ocean, human waste and nuclear waste. It's a very interesting book in its own way, and then there's an introduction. And he says the genesis of this book was nearly 30 years ago when I had a part-time job on a rubbish truck, gathering all types of waste from a middle-class neighbourhood and disposing of it at a landfill. Now, that is quite an interesting indication of where his interest came. Mine came as the elected representative on a local authority, looking specifically at how we dealt with landfill problems. Because of the waste issues and the fact that we were not, as a council, recycling sufficiently large amounts of material. So waste policy, very much to the core, but a huge political endeavour. And then you've got the main chapter headings here. That's the heading on the 5 certainties. You can see it's got numbering, and there is, of course, a lot of detail in the footnotes. Some of the footnotes are extremely long, you can see that there. And the key to reading this book is to actually just read through the text. Again, you can see an awful lot of footnoting there, which is the justification for the points made, I hasten to add. But actually do read just through the whole thing. Recycling in particular, I think, is an important point. The reason being we haven't really got that far with recycling from the point of view of we started off with a very low percentage and then you get up to a certain maximum. I was asked, I remember once some years ago, well, what is the percentage you should recycle? And I said, well, at least 50%. Well, you'd be lucky if you get a 35 to 40%, but when you were on about 10 or less, which was what was happening, you can see there was a very great need for the government and for local government to become much more involved. I think this book actually is excellent in helping us understand where we're going. Now, what I've said, in fact, in my opening remarks is covered by the short review. As I said, it's a brilliant best friend for anybody involved in this area of environmental law because it covers a whole range of things from human waste to nuclear waste, the question of how we must manage what we no longer want in terms of either recycling or disposal is one of the most pressing issues in environmental law today. And I'm certain that it's going to continue because we cannot go along, we don't have the landfill space to start with, and we cannot continue actually ignoring what is a major issue. You will note that I'm recording this towards the end of 2015, and waste policy has taken a very substantial turn in October of 2015 by the introduction of 5p per plastic bag in supermarkets. And that already, having recorded this a few weeks after that implementation, statutory implementation, we're already noticing there aren't as many plastic bags around. So you see that the Parliament can influence. Let me continue by saying that what Gillespie addresses here are the gaps in previous legal literature, because what he's doing here is incorporating economics, philosophy, and the ideal of sustainable development in order to provide context, which is what's actually said in the book, to the surrounding legal and policy, i.e. the political considerations for the management of waste. Can I just say the word sustainable is used again. I'm not quite sure what that really means. Sustainable means to continue, to sustain. I mean, in legal terms, you can either sustain or overrule. If you sustain an objection, that means you agree with the objection. If you overrule it, you say no, you can ask the question. So sustainable can have a bit of an unusual meaning, but it does, I think, meaning subsisting. So sustainable development, in other words, to make sure that we subsist. It's possibly what it could mean for the environmentalist. But this is way beyond just an environmentalist's view. This is a much more detailed legal treatise, in my view, of what Gillespie is putting forward. The book's premise, then, is that all forms of waste are expanded exponentially and are often of a hazardous nature. And he examines the size of the problem today and considers how it's evolving. He also assesses the legal and the political implications well, and I think this book would be of value to anybody who is actually a local authority representative, elected member, dealing with the environment portfolio, because that is an area, I think, which they should be aware of the type of options that are going to be open, not just now but in the future, as to what we do both as a country and as a member state within the EU. Gillespie then shows that existing solutions to reducing consumption and recycling are in fact limited, and he concludes the book by discussing the potential ways forward, most of which of course will involve expenditure. And of course that is the one thing that we're not really talking about here, but it was certainly what I was faced with the environment portfolio, of looking specifically at how much money we would actually have to put in to dealing with waste, and at the end of the day, was it cost effective? We do of course have something else that's occurring at the moment towards the end of 2015, and that is a lot of illegal dumping. And that again in itself, it may be a criminal offence. Catching them is a very big problem. It's again a problem that I had representing people in two different local authority areas where dumping was quite a big problem. Carpets, electronics, refrigerators, that sort of stuff, just suddenly appearing overnight in some alleyway. Someone's just dumped it and cleared off. Of course, you haven't got CCTV to connect with it, so there's a problem. But it certainly is something that's worth thinking about, and this book provokes thought. Let me conclude by saying that we feel that students and scholars with an interest in environmental law at national, regional and international level will find this book to be of great use. The book will also, I think, be of interest to practitioners who want to solve issues surrounding waste and recycling in their own areas. And as I've indicated before, this is something which isn't new, it isn't going to go away either. It's been with us a long time now, and we still do need, I think, to get some substantial international recognition of what we're doing. Notice the subtitle again is International Regulation, Comparative and Contextual Perspectives, because it's not just a problem here, it's a problem across the globe. I think recycling, I've opened the book right in the middle just to see, you see recycling. That is one of the biggest ways that we can in fact look at dealing with the matter. This chapter is about recycling and related practices, and it's looking specifically at where we are going in the 21st century. And then finally, the one bit at the end, nuclear waste, always very controversial, but I think he gets the balance about right for the time being. So thank you, Alexander, and thank you very much to Edward Elgar for another excellent book, which will be a great benefit to all of us in the coming decades. Thank you. Bye-bye.